It's been almost 35 years since the death of Bette Davis, one of the most renowned actresses of all time. Davis attempted to conceal certain sinister truths from the public while she was alive, but recent disclosures from her family have exposed them. What are these sinister secrets, and how will they change how we see one of the most significant symbols in film history? Watch this space to find out. Early life. Born Ruth Elizabeth Davis on April 5, 1908 in Lowell, Massachusetts, Bette Davis's early years set the stage for her remarkable Hollywood career. When Bette was 10, her parents Ruth Augusta and Harlow Morrell Davis separated due to their turbulent relationship. Since little Bette and her sister Barbara were mainly reared by their mother in a complex financial condition, this incident significantly affected them. La Cousine Bette. Despite being a typical child, Bette often attracted attention from others, inspired by a character from the French book La Cousine Bette, which narrates the tale of a middle-aged, unmarried lady plotting against her family. She decided to alter the spelling of her name to Betty at that time. Young Bette had no idea that this iconic femme fatale would soon reflect her personality, as she went on to perform solid and dramatic parts in several movies. Do not judge a book. Although Bette Davis was unquestionably beautiful, she didn't meet Hollywood's ideal of beauty. Thus, she often had to meet the high standards of the sector. She once traveled to see the head of a Hollywood studio, but she was ignored at the airport. Because she didn't fit his ideal of an actor, the CEO didn't identify her and left without noticing her presence. Difficulties faced by Bette Davis. The difficulties faced by Bette Davis went beyond the standards of beauty in Hollywood. She also had personal struggles. While her mother was kind and educated, Bette on the intricacies of marriage, her father remained aloof. Bette was happy when her parents split up since she thought their relationship was awful. A significant influence on Bette's future was her mother, who was well known for having a strong will. Despite their modest resources, she gave her girls opportunities and encouraged them to follow their interests. Cushing Academy. Bette found her love for performing at Cushing Academy, one of the numerous boarding schools she attended. Given her daughter's ability and tenacity, her mother encouraged her new passion. When she was 13, her mother relocated the family to New York City, where she attended the Clarence White School of Photography using their tuition funds. After graduating from Cushing Academy in 1926, Bette Davis became an actress. She applied to and was accepted at the esteemed John Murray Anderson School of Theater in New York City, where she started her official training. Resilience and tenacity. Under the direction of renowned teachers, Bette refined her trade while attending school, acquiring the abilities that would later characterize her profession. Resilience, tenacity, and an unwavering pursuit of her acting vocation defined Bette Davis's early years. Because of her skill and unshakable determination, she overcame many obstacles to become one of the most recognizable characters in film history. Unique personality. Bette Davis's unique personality, unwavering determination, and the many obstacles she overcame were hallmarks of her Hollywood career. At the start of her career, there was much discussion about Davis's character. She was a divisive figure among her contemporaries, since she was sometimes seen as charming and friendly, and other times as someone completely different. Manhattan Civic Repertory Theater. She was turned down by prominent groups like the Manhattan Civic Repertory Theater because of her temperament, not because of her lack of skill, but because of how others saw her. This judgment highlighted the prejudices and short-sightedness that often ruled the sector. The theater had no idea they were throwing away a person who would become one of the most famous actors in movie history. Her influential performances. Davis had difficulties along the way to becoming a household name. After relocating to New York, she joined the Girl Scouts, but her passion for acting quickly took precedence over her other pursuits. At the age of 18, Peg Entwistle's portrayal in the 1925 drama The Wild Duck greatly influenced her, sparking her love for the theater. Hedwig. Cook saw her promise and gave her a small paid position as a chorus girl. even though her audition for the George Cook Stock Theater Company in Rochester, New York, was underwhelming. This little action marked the start of her career's challenging path. When director Blanche Yerka offered Davis the role of Hedwig in the same production 3 years after she'd seen The Wild Duck, it significantly affected her. She could play in places like Boston, Washington, and Philadelphia because of her job. At age 21, she had her Broadway debut in Broken Dishes, which Solid South swiftly followed because of her skill on stage. A deal with Universal Studios. But Hollywood presented a distinct set of difficulties. Davis got a deal with Universal Studios in 1931 when she was only 23 years old, but her time there was anything but easy. After failing her first one, she was forced to help other actresses with their screen tests. Her stunning eyes caught the attention of a cameraman around this time, and she was placed opposite Sidney Fox and Humphrey Bogart in her film debut, Bad Sister. Universal fired her when the film didn't do well at the box office. Not giving up her dream. Notwithstanding the loss, this movie was her first foray into the motion picture industry. Davis's tenacity was shown by her refusal to give up on her goals. After gaining recognition in The Man Who Played God, her perseverance resulted in a deal with Warner Brothers. However, Warner Brothers didn't appear to know what part she would play. So in 1934, they lent her to Arco Pictures for Of Human Bondage. First critical triumph. This play is based on her portrayal of the heartless waitress W. Mildred in Somerset Maugham's book, was her first critical triumph. Because of her strong performance, Davis received her first Academy Award nomination. This noteworthy accomplishment made her ability to portray powerful, often contentious women who violated social norms possible. Breaking the limitations. In spite of this development, Davis still had trouble with typecasting. Actresses were notoriously pigeonholed into certain parts by the business, but Davis fiercely opposed these limitations. Her tenacity in taking on demanding and varied responsibilities created the foundation for her long-term success. Davis's struggles went beyond the roles she chose. She famously sued Warner Brothers in 1936, claiming that the contract's restrictions prevented her from choosing her roles and granting her more creative freedom. First Academy Award. Even though she lost the lawsuit, this court action was a turning point in the struggle for actor rights and had a lasting impact on the business. Davis's perseverance paid off the following year when she was honored with her first Academy Award for a performance in Dangerous as a Disturbed Young Actress. This accomplishment cemented her career in Hollywood, and she later starred in The Petrified Forest with Humphrey Bogart and Leslie Howard. She became one of Hollywood's most talented actors after winning another Academy Award for Best Actress in 1938 for her role in Jezebel. But she still had a long way to go. Despite her achievements, Davis encountered conflict in the business and often argued with studio officials over contract conditions and artistic direction. Complexity as an actor. These difficulties only motivated her to keep looking for parts that would highlight her range and complexity as an actor. Davis cemented her status by providing strong performances in various movies during the 1940s. However, she often deviates from industry conventions due to her direct demeanor and willingness to question the status quo. She was well known for her vocal opposition to ageism in Hollywood and the restricted parts that older women may play, which is still a problem today. The struggles. Davis struggled in the 1950s with a changing film business that was less drawn to the powerful, unyielding parts she had portrayed in the past. Her ability and perseverance, however, made sure she stayed relevant. Her portrayal of elderly actress Margot Channing in All About Eve in 1950 was one of her most well-known roles at this time. This part reflects her challenges with aging in a field that's obsessed with youth. She received praise for her portrayal, was nominated for another Academy Award, and solidified her status as a significant character in cinematic history. not backing down from a challenge. However, Davis had to constantly adjust to the changes in the sector. The emergence of television and new film genres required flexibility, and Davis was not one to back down from a challenge. She took chances by appearing in television shows and sometimes in less well-reviewed motion pictures. When she switched from cinema to television, it was clear she was adaptable and could draw viewers in whatever format. Finding herself in odds with the studio executives. Davis continued to struggle with the studios despite these changes. She often finds herself at odds with studio executives because of her demands for creative freedom and her support of improved screenplays and roles. This turbulent connection highlighted the more significant problems with Hollywood's handling of its performers and their creative independence. Health issues also surfaced in the latter years of her career. Davis had many knee operations, breast cancer, and a stroke, among other severe ailments. Davis's success in the horror genre, especially movies like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, was a defining feature of her later career. Her extraordinary skill. In this film, Davis portrayed Joan Crawford's hideous, washed-up child actress, Baby Jane Hudson. In addition to bringing her a new generation of followers, the performance earned her another Academy Award nomination. The movie's popularity spawned several horror movies with older ladies, a subgenre known as hagsploitation. Nevertheless, Davis's performance exceeded novelty and confirmed her extraordinary skill, despite her advanced age. Davis always became a remembered person. She pushed the envelope by authoring her memoirs, appearing in television films, and guest starring. Actress, innovator, and warrior. Her status as an actress, innovator, and warrior was further cemented by her autobiographies, The Lonely Life in 1962 and This and That in 1987, which offered an honest look at her life, profession, and the many obstacles she encountered. Breaking the boundaries. Bette Davis's perseverance and unshakable dedication to her work were shown throughout her career. She defied Hollywood's preconceptions of women, broke down boundaries, and campaigned for more excellent positions. Numerous standout performances demonstrating her extraordinary range and depth as an actor define her career. More significantly, her struggles for improved working conditions and creative independence opened the door for later generations of performers to demand more respect and autonomy in their professions. Her struggles made her stronger. Bette Davis was a pioneer who changed the face of Hollywood, and her impact went beyond her career. Her career shows her perseverance, characterized by early rejections, ongoing conflicts with studio executives, typecasting, and health problems. She overcame these obstacles to become a landmark in the entertainment world, renowned for her strong performances and unbreakable willpower. Legacy of exceptional skill. Actors and viewers alike are still motivated by her legacy of exceptional skill, tenacity, and an unwavering spirit. In addition to leaving behind a recognizable body of work, Davis cleared the path for more artistic freedom and regard for the next generation in Hollywood. Like her work, Bette Davis's personal life was complicated and full of obstacles. Her upbringing in a rigid and dissatisfied family significantly shaped her views on marriage, yet her relationships were turbulent. Following in the footsteps of her mother, Davis had 4 marriages that ended in divorce and eventually raised her children alone. Her relationships. When Davis was 24 years old in 1932, she was married for the first time to Harmon Oscar Nelson Jr., also known as Ham, her high school lover. There were several problems in the relationship, including 2 pregnancies that were terminated due to Nelson's alleged demand. Given the medical hazards involved with such treatments in the 1930s, these experiences were both physically and emotionally distressing. Marital problems. Tensions resulting from Davis's ascent to fame and Nelson's unease with her success, overshadowing his own, led to the marriage's dissolution in 1938. Her personal life would continue to be shaped in the years to come by this pattern of difficulties and imbalances in her relationships. His domineering and sometimes nasty actions severely damaged Harmon Nelson and Bette Davis's marriage. Nelson filed for divorce in 1938 as a result of an adulterous affair that started when Davis sought comfort outside the marriage. Davis experienced emotional upheaval and notable professional success during this time in his life. Love on the set. Davis starred in Dangerous in 1935, which earned her first Academy Award for Best Actress. During her tumultuous relationship with Nelson, she fell deeply in love with her co-star Franchot Tone while they were on set. However, one of Hollywood's most notorious rivalries began when it was revealed that Tone was already engaged to Joan Crawford. The rivalry. The hostility between Davis and Crawford shaped their public identities and affected their personal and professional lives. Their decades-long rivalry, characterized by scathing comments and professional conflicts, peaked when they worked together on whatever happened to Baby Jane. Davis's already turbulent life was even more dramatic because of the fierce competition in her personal and professional lives. The separation. However, their marriage was troubled and ended in divorce in 1950. 2 years later, Davis married artist William Grant Sherry, with whom she had her sole biological child, a daughter called Barbara, who was lovingly referred to as BD. Davis had to balance the demands of her demanding job with the difficulties of being a single mother in this period. Michael and Margot. Davis married actor Gary Merrill, who co-starred with her in the 1950 film All About Eve, shortly after she and Sherry were divorced. They adopted 2 kids together, Michael and Margot. Although the marriage seemed promising initially, it was also tumultuous and characterized by personal and professional disputes. When they divorced in 1960, Davis's efforts to have a committed marriage ended. Bette Davis's difficult journey. Her hardships and the tremendous demands of her career created a complicated picture of a woman juggling the highs and lows of family and celebrity. Davis's perseverance in the face of these obstacles cemented her reputation as a pioneer on and off screen. Marital strife and the difficulties of juggling her illustrious job with her family obligations characterized Bette Davis's difficult journey toward personal stability. She struggled to find long-term happiness in her marriage, but discovered satisfaction and a feeling of purpose as a mother. Barbara Davis Hyman. But being a mom was a challenging task for her. She had a taut and contentious relationship with her daughter, Barbara Davis Hyman. Barbara found it difficult to establish her identity and individuality while growing up in the spotlight as the daughter of a Hollywood icon. Meanwhile, Barbara's quest for independence often clashed with Davis's demanding and strong-willed personality. My Mother's Keeper. This tense relationship lasted over time and gained notoriety when Barbara released her contentious book, My Mother's Keeper, in 1985. The book's negative portrayal of Davis as a controlling and aloof parent attracted media attention and further strained their relationship. Despite these obstacles, Davis stayed dedicated to her mothering position, balancing the demands of a groundbreaking job with her responsibilities to her family. Her journey as a mom and an artist highlights the complexity of her life, a blend of remarkable accomplishments and human struggles, as her journey as a mom and an artist. Complicated relationship with the daughter. One of the most controversial elements of Bette Davis's personal life was her connection with her daughter, Barbara Davis Hyman. This relationship ended in a dramatic separation that lasted until Davis's death in 1989. The fact that Davis specifically disinherited Barbara in her will highlighted the severe animosity. This absence from her mother's bequest generated headlines and increased public interest in their connection. Davis stated, "I declare that I have intentionally and with full knowledge omitted to provide herein for my daughter." Rumors about her indulgences. In her 1985 book, My Mother's Keeper, Barbara had already made her complaints known to the world, portraying Davis as a controlling and emotionally abusive person. Barbara described times of anxiety and estrangement throughout her childhood, citing incidents of her mother's domineering conduct. Barbara's accusations that Davis engaged in witchcraft and occult rites were among the most dramatic ones in her narrative. Many people rejected Barbara's assertion that Davis engaged in rites that included gutting fish and muttering curses as exaggerated or untrue. In A Long Day's Journey into Light, a series of YouTube videos, Barbara, who subsequently became a born-again Christian, repeated similar accusations. These tapes, which were shot in the late 1990s and came to light again in 2015, supported her allegations that her mother engaged in emotional manipulation and occult activities. Support from friends. Although Barbara's charges were divisive and contentious, Davis's friends and supporters often stood up for her, believing that Barbara's depiction was overblown or an effort to capitalize on her mother's notoriety. Barbara had seen Davis's unreserved demands in both her personal and professional life, characterized by her fiery and strong-willed nature. Despite the turmoil, many people still see Davis as a groundbreaking actor, even as her complex personal relationships give her public character more nuance and complexity. The tense mother-daughter bond is a moving reminder of Davis's difficulties in her home and Hollywood. Daughter complex experience. Decades after the renowned actress's passing, Barbara Davis Hyman's ongoing accusations and public remarks on her mother, Bette Davis, underscore the continuing conflict and unresolved feelings resulting from their tense relationship. Born-again Christian and now 77 years old, Barbara has written a lot about her experiences, particularly in her contentious book, My Mother's Keeper. She continues to share her stories of her mother's purported witchcraft experiments and emotionally harmful conduct, and she also works as a preacher. Barbara's stories. According to Barbara, Davis cast charms and performed occult rituals. She even implies that she carried out these practices from her bedroom. These charges, which were made more than 26 years after Davis died of breast cancer in 1989, demonstrate how profoundly their connection affected Barbara. Barbara's stories are often criticized for being inflated or opportunistic, pointing out that they were made long after Davis had a chance to dispute or reply. Bette Davis's work throughout her career. Known for her powerful presence and powerful performances, Bette Davis captivated audiences throughout her career by adding unparalleled emotional depth to her parts. Barbara claims this intensity permeated their lives and showed itself as dominating and controlling conduct. Public opinion is still divided and intrigued by the sharp contrast between Davis's renowned public persona and the portrayal of her daughter. The continuous discussion around their relationship highlights the complexity of Davis's legacy as a highly gifted and innovative artist whose private life was characterized by animosity and strife. Barbara's stories give Davis's narrative a contentious edge and remind us of the many difficulties people in the limelight endure. Harsh and unsettling picture. The portrayal of Barbara Davis, Hyman's mother, Bette Davis, presents a harsh and unsettling picture of the legendary actress's private life, departing greatly from her well-known public demeanor. In her book, My Mother's Keeper, Hyman portrays her mother as controlling and emotionally abusive and claims that Davis used manipulation to keep control over everyone around her. Hyman noted, "My mother was not just a perfectionist, she was a tyrant," describing her fearsome anger and unrelenting expectations. Davis's drug abuse. Among Hyman's allegations are details of Davis's drug abuse, including her alcohol use, which she said made her unpredictable and violent conduct worse. According to Hyman, these actions created an environment of fear and instability in their home. Hyman also described disturbing instances in which Davis would pretend to be overdosing on drugs to threaten or teach a lesson, returning the following day with remarks like, "I hope that taught you a good lesson." Became a timeless emblem. The popular perception of Davis as a groundbreaking actress who battled against structural barriers in Hollywood and became a timeless emblem of tenacity starkly contrasts this narrative. Given the tense nature of their relationship and the fact that Hyman's biography was published soon after Davis's death, several critics and fans have questioned her statements, seeing them as sensationalized or opportunistic. Contrary to her daughter's depiction. Though her on-screen record is unblemished, Hyman's accusations provide a nuanced dimension to Bette Davis's narrative, illustrating the often complex connections between famous people and their families. These testimonies nonetheless spark discussions about the personal struggles that even the most famous people experience. Misconstrued stories. Reactions to Barbara Davis Hyman's accusations were not entirely uniform. Bette Davis was defended by several admirers and co-workers who claimed that Hyman's stories were inflated or misconstrued, often citing Davis's remarkable career and reputation as a Hollywood icon. These advocates highlighted Davis's outstanding contributions to the film industry. They said that her reputation as a pioneer and one of the finest actresses in history should not be overshadowed by her complex personal life. Individuals accepting Hyman's account. However, other individuals were more likely to accept Hyman's accounts, admitting that the extreme demands and pressures of the Hollywood business could have a role in the said actions. And erratic tendencies were probably made worse by the mix of personal hardships and the harsh reality of show business. Davis's professional accomplishments were unaffected even after these more sinister aspects of her life came to light. She's established herself as a trailblazing personality in the business because of her extraordinary skill and innovative filmmaking, which are still praised across the globe. Her achievements. Davis's career achievements sharply contrasted with her struggles. For instance, she won her first Academy Award for Dangerous in 1935, after being nominated for her first Oscar in 1934 for Of Human Bondage. This was the start of a long and remarkable career that would bring her 2 Academy Awards and several honors. Her ongoing professional success further cemented her status as a representative of brilliance and tenacity, despite personal adversity. Oscar for Best Actress. Bette Davis became one of Hollywood's top actresses after winning a second Oscar for Best Actress as Julie Marsden in Jezebel. This honor further solidified her reputation as a formidable force in the entertainment world. Davis's 1936 legal dispute with Warner Brothers exemplified her contentious struggle for artistic freedom throughout her career. She sought more control over her parts in this historic lawsuit, establishing a significant precedent for actors' rights in Hollywood and allowing upcoming artists to contest studio restrictions. Success reflecting Hollywood. Her will to succeed in Hollywood reflected her unwavering will in her personal life, where she consistently overcame obstacles. During her tenure at Warner Brothers, Davis had significant success in her career, giving solid performances in movies such as Dark Victory in 1939, The Invisible Man in 1940, and Now Voyager in 1942. Her remarkable flexibility was on display in these parts, which allowed her to play a variety of nuanced personalities and revealed the depth of her acting abilities. Broke Hollywood's traditional role. In an age when women's roles in Hollywood were often restricted to traditional, one-dimensional depictions, Bette Davis stood out for her ability to represent nuanced, ethically ambiguous characters. By showing her variety and depth as an actor and defying the conventional depictions of women in those films, her parts in Dark Victory, The Invisible Man, and Now Voyager helped broaden the scope of women's roles in cinema. The Feud. One of the most fascinating storylines in Hollywood was Bette Davis's notorious feud with Joan Crawford, which her daughter, Barbara Davis Hyman, chronicled. Their rivalry became legendary, and both women were giants of the golden age of film. Barbara's story provides an intimate glimpse into the emotional and professional conflicts behind the scenes and illuminates the tensions that characterize their partnership. The next big star. Bette Davis's ascent to Hollywood popularity peaked in 1933 when Universal Studios announced her as the next big star. She'd previously battled against overwhelming obstacles to establish herself in the business. In addition to securing her position, this victory paved the way for her nuanced relationships with Crawford and her colleagues, eventually stoking her long-standing rivalry. Bette Davis versus Joan Crawford. A little but crucial occurrence marked the beginning of Bette Davis and Joan Crawford's feud and demonstrated Crawford's skill in swaying public opinion and timing. The issue started when Crawford unexpectedly revealed her divorce from Douglas Fairbanks Jr. on the same day that Universal Studios was scheduled to publish a feature piece announcing Davis as Hollywood's next excellent star. Their public quarrel began when this tactic successfully diverted attention away from Davis's impending feature, making her career announcement a mere afterthought. Stealing the spotlight. This strategic maneuver saddened and emotionally upset Davis, sparking a string of competitive and sometimes angry exchanges between the two actresses. Each tried to outmaneuver the other in Hollywood's competitive business, and public taunts, sour exchanges, and professional sabotage marked their relationship. In addition to controlling their interpersonal relationships, this rivalry significantly impacted their careers, affecting the parts they played and the narratives they conveyed on stage. Adding fuel to the fire. When Whatever Happened to Baby Jane was being filmed, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford's feud peaked in 1962, in which their rivalry off-screen produced a tense, combustible environment that helped create memorable performances. Their real struggles permeated their on-screen personas, giving their characters more nuance and drama and enthralling viewers everywhere. Love triangle. A love triangle involving Davis, Crawford, and actor Franchot Tone added to their tension. This love drama started on the set of the 1935 movie Dangerous, when Davis was captivated by Tone's charisma and charm right away. But Tone and Crawford were already in a love relationship. Despite this, Davis persisted in his pursuit of Tone, hoping their on-screen connection would develop into a romantic relationship in real life. Their fight for Tone's affections exacerbated the two actresses' growing antagonism, making their encounters even more tense and antagonistic. Their long-running conflict was only compounded by this complex relationship. Joan Crawford engagement. Bette Davis, who was married at the time, pursued Franchot Tone assiduously in an attempt to earn his affection. But Joan Crawford, who was always competitive and didn't want to lose, immediately pushed Tone into an engagement, securing her bond with him. For Davis, the news of their engagement was devastating on both a personal and professional level. On the set of her career-defining movie, Davis had to watch the love victory of the same lady she saw as her competitor. This personal tragedy also amounted to a professional setback for Davis, leaving her in a precarious situation. The resistance. When Davis thought she had little chance of winning at the 1936 Oscars, the emotional agony became more intense. She wore an ugly gown to the event as a measure of quiet resistance, even though she had meant to forego it entirely. What should have been a joyous occasion was transformed into a time of passive rebellion against the system, and maybe against her rival, as her rivalry with Crawford permeated their personal and professional lives. Winning the Best Actress. However, fate had different ideas for Bette Davis. Despite her rebellious image, she unexpectedly won the Best Actress Oscar. Davis was forced to accept the prize while performing in her ugly outfit. Joan Crawford allegedly made a scathing comment, grabbing the chance to strike again. According to her, Franchot Tone chose her over Davis because he considered Davis a talented actor, but not a lovely lady. Davis was significantly hurt by this remark, which rekindled their acrid hostility. Their infamous rivalry. Both Joan Crawford and Bette Davis had a lasting impression on Hollywood despite their infamous rivalry. Each contributed special skills that helped to define the golden age of cinema. Crawford's imposing presence on screen and Davis's dynamic range as an actor helped to create classic pictures that continue to influence that era's history. Bette and Joan was a television series. Their rivalry, now ingrained in popular culture, vividly depicts a field where personal and professional lives often collide with disastrous outcomes. Because the conflict was so well known. In addition to bringing attention to the intricacies of their relationship, this series reignited interest in their films and significant careers. The scandals. Bette Davis's several marriages and the scandals surrounding her personal life were often seen negatively by the public and media. Her tumultuous relationships and outspoken attitude were usually the subject of gossip columns and Hollywood media. Davis, nevertheless, never let these opinions take precedence over her job. She consistently pursued parts that challenged Hollywood's constrictive conventions and allowed her to show off her skills. A powerful presence. Despite scandals and personal hardships, Davis found strength in her network of friends and coworkers. She continued to be a powerful presence in Hollywood, always pushing the envelope and establishing herself as a pioneer in the field. Bette Davis found emotional support and companionship in close friendships, such as those with fellow actors Olivia de Havilland and Katharine Hepburn. Furthermore, Davis's guidance of up-and-coming performers had a profound effect. She encouraged young artist development and creative pursuits by sharing her knowledge and industry insights. Facing the obstacle. Although Davis's narrative was undoubtedly made more dramatic by her competition with Joan Crawford, it's important to acknowledge her incredible fortitude in the face of insurmountable obstacles. In an age when studio contracts greatly favored employers, Davis, for example, pioneered the fight for higher parts and more creative freedom by suing Warner Brothers. Her unwavering quest for creative freedom established crucial precedents for Hollywood actors' rights. As if her feud with Joan Crawford wasn't enough, Bette Davis was embroiled in yet another conflict that tested her fortitude. Her dispute with Warner Brothers became a significant episode in Hollywood history, a turning point in the struggle for performers' rights and artistic independence. When it all began. This conflict started in the late 1930s, when Davis, who was already a well-known actress, became increasingly irate about the parts the studio was giving her. In 1932, when the studio system had enormous influence over performers' careers, she agreed to a 7-year deal with Warner Brothers. Actors were subject to long-term contracts under the system, which allowed studios considerable influence over their careers by determining the parts they'd play and the movies they would feature in. For Davis, this meant playing a string of unimpressive parts that, in her opinion, did not adequately showcase her abilities. The tipping point. When Davis was presented with several jobs in 1936 that she found very unpleasant, that was the tipping point. She decided to speak up because she believed that her creative integrity was being violated. In search of a more demanding and satisfying job, Davis departed for England. Warner Brothers, however, sued her for breach of contract because they couldn't bear to let one of their greatest stars leave so quickly. The court dispute. The ensuing court dispute received extensive media coverage and gained popularity in the entertainment sector. Davis maintained that she should be able to decline assignments that she believed were unworthy of her abilities because the stipulations of her contract were burdensome. Additionally, she said that the studio's dominance over her career inhibited her originality and kept her from realizing her full acting ability. Lost the lawsuit. Conversely, Warner Brothers maintained that Davis had a contractual duty to carry out her end of the bargain. They maintained that permitting her to breach her contract would create a risky precedent and jeopardize the studio structure. Davis had difficulty defeating the influential studio when the matter got to court in England. Davis ultimately lost the lawsuit, despite her fervent arguments and the backing of many in the business. After the court decided in Warner Brothers' favor, Davis was told to come back to the studio and carry out her end of the bargain. Yielding results. But the fight was worthwhile. The case's exposure raised a lot of awareness about the studio system's repressive practices and the rights of actors. Warner Brothers realized they needed to appease their celebrity following the litigation. They started giving Davis more substantial parts, which resulted in some of her best-known performances. cementing her place in Hollywood. Movies like Dark Victory in 1939 and Jezebel in 1938, for which she received her second Academy Award, demonstrated Bette Davis's extraordinary skill and cemented her place as one of Hollywood's top actresses. Davis's conflict with Warner Brothers proved a turning point in Hollywood history. It laid the stage for future changes that would give performers more control over their careers and brought attention to the difficulties that actors experience under the studio system. Efforts leading her as an A-list actress. In addition to being a well-known actress, Bette Davis was also a trailblazer in the struggle for creative freedom and equitable treatment in the entertainment business because of her bravery and tenacity in opposing the influential company. Bette Davis's commitment to her art remained unwavering despite these personal and professional struggles. By 1937, she had solidified her position as an A-list actress in the very competitive Hollywood industry. Despite constant scandals and the tiresome conflict with Joan Crawford, her fame remained bright among the flash and glamour of the business. Her subtle performances. With her competition with Crawford and the conflict with Warner Brothers serving as a constant source of tension and controversy, Davis's career took incredible heights. Davis, however, was unfazed and continued to pursue her career. Her reputation as one of Hollywood's best was solidified by her subtle performances and unwavering work ethic. Her breakthrough roles in movies like Jezebel and Dark Victory solidified her reputation in Hollywood by showcasing her unmatched range and depth as an actor. Health issues. Major setbacks and familial strife complicated Bette Davis's life as she grew older, further complicating her remarkable career. Davis had several severe health problems throughout the 1980s. She had a mastectomy after receiving a breast cancer diagnosis, and shortly after she had a crippling stroke that left her half paralyzed. Her unshakable dedication. Davis showed her usual tenacity in the face of these severe health issues by undertaking rigorous therapy to restore her speech and mobility. She showed her unshakable dedication to her trade by being able to return to acting in noteworthy roles, including The Whales of August in 1987. Davis's fortitude in the face of hardship kept inspiring others and solidified her status as a respected Hollywood icon. Daughter's allegations. Bette Davis struggled with severe family strife, especially with her daughter, Barbara Davis Hyman. In addition to her health issues, My Mother's Keeper, a contentious tell-all book by Hyman and released in 1985, painted Davis negatively. To refute her daughter's allegations, Davis wrote her book, This and That, in reaction to these charges. The animosity. The public conflict between mother and daughter clouded Davis's senior years, indicating the underlying problems in the family. This animosity continued until Davis's death, with Hyman's follow-up comments sustaining the media spectacle. Davis maintained a strong work ethic despite this emotional stress. She kept working, showcasing her prowess on and off film, with performances that solidified her legendary stature in Hollywood. Deteriorating health. Her health, however, kept deteriorating. When her illness returned in 1989, Bette Davis confronted her last days with the same fortitude and dignity that had characterized her career. She remained in charge of her situation until the very end, refusing her son's visits so he wouldn't have to endure the pain of seeing her deteriorate. Shortly after visiting the San Sebastian International Film Festival, Davis died on October 6, 1989, at the American Hospital in Neuilly-sur-Seine, France. Her passing closed the book on a career of noteworthy accomplishments and groundbreaking contributions to the film industry, marking the end of an incredible chapter in movie history. Disputes continued after her death. Nevertheless, the family disputes continued after her death. While ignoring her daughter Barbara Davis Hyman completely, Davis split her inheritance between her devoted aide, Catherine, and her adoptive son, Michael. The last act of exclusion further complicated the complicated and sometimes turbulent familial relationships that had characterized Davis's existence. Her Lifetime Achievement Award. This choice may clarify Barbara Davis Hyman's enduring animosity against her mother and spurred more discussions about the severity of family problems. Davis received several honors and a long legacy for her efforts in Hollywood. In 1977, she became the first female recipient of the American Film Institute's Lifetime Achievement Award, demonstrating her revolutionary impact on the business. Impression on the Golden Age. Strong performances in movies like Jezebel, All About Eve, and now Voyager defined her career and demonstrated her capacity to capture the complexity and richness of characters. These roles cemented her reputation as one of the most admired actresses in movie history and also had a lasting impression on the golden age of Hollywood. Her captivating performances. Bette Davis's tenacity and fortitude maintained her distinguishing traits throughout her health issues and personal strife. She persevered to make a long-lasting impression on the film industry while battling a significant illness and navigating family strife. Innumerable actors and filmmakers have been inspired by her legacy of unmatched skill and unwavering tenacity. The impact of Bette Davis on Hollywood is enormous. Davis, well known for her dramatic and audacious performances, defied the stereotype of the conventional leading woman by accepting challenging and sometimes unglamorous parts. She became one of the most renowned actresses of her day because of her commitment to her art, which garnered her 2 Academy Awards and 10 nominations. Fight for creative freedom. Davis's influence goes beyond her work in movies. She fought Warner Brothers for better parts and greater creative freedom, making her a frontrunner for performers' rights. This battle made future changes that gave artists more influence over their careers possible and brought attention to the studio system's coercive character. Her impact can be seen in the many performances and movies that continue to reference her daring acting style and the innumerable actresses who named her an inspiration. Lasting impression on films. Bette Davis is known today for her fortitude and perseverance off-screen as much as her dramatic on-screen persona. Her entire story, from the height of her Hollywood celebrity to her later personal hardships, is a moving account of an artist who persisted in her commitment to her work despite all of her challenges. In addition to making a lasting impression on film, Davis also influenced the development of the business toward more creative freedom and appreciation of the actor's work. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon